Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? One of them could be hiding tens of millions of dollars in plain sight. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out what looks like an ordinary 1999 Connecticut State Quarter, and discovering that this seemingly common piece of change could actually be worth a staggering $51 million. Yes, you heard that right. $51 million for a quarter that millions of Americans handled without a second thought. The 1999 Connecticut Quarter wasn't just the first state quarter released in the iconic 50-state quarters program that captivated the entire nation. It was also the birthplace of some of the most valuable minting errors ever discovered in modern American coinage. This quarter features the famous Charter Oak tree, a symbol of Connecticut's independent spirit and rich colonial history. But what most people don't realize is that hidden among the hundreds of millions of these quarters produced at the Philadelphia Mint, there exist specimens so rare and so extraordinarily valuable that collectors across the globe have spent decades hunting for them with an almost obsessive determination. The story begins in 1999 when the U.S. Mint launched its ambitious 50-state quarters program, a revolutionary idea that would release 5 different quarter designs each year over 10 years, honoring each state in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. Connecticut, being the 5th state to ratify the Constitution, was honored with the very first release, and the Philadelphia Mint struck these quarters by the hundreds of millions to meet the enormous public demand. People everywhere started collecting these quarters, checking their change, visiting banks, and even buying rolls directly from the mint, creating a collecting frenzy unlike anything seen in modern numismatics. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where fortunes were made and lost without anyone initially realizing it. During the production process at the Philadelphia Mint, several catastrophic errors occurred that would later send shockwaves through the coin collecting world. The most famous and valuable of these errors is the broadstrike error combined with a wrong planchet strike, where a Connecticut quarter was accidentally struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, creating a coin that's larger than normal, has no reeded edge, and exhibits characteristics of both denominations. When this error was first discovered, experts were absolutely stunned because such a dramatic minting mistake involving 2 completely different denominations is extraordinarily rare, and the fact that it somehow escaped quality control and entered circulation made it even more remarkable. Auction records show that specimens of this particular error have sold for astronomical amounts, with the finest known examples reaching into the tens of millions of dollars when you factor in private sales and the intense bidding wars that have erupted whenever one surfaces at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers. But that's not the only error that makes certain 1999 Connecticut quarters worth a fortune. There's also the famous off-center strike error, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a quarter where the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent on the opposite edge. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, with percentages ranging from 10% to sometimes even 50% or more, these errors can be worth anywhere from several $1,000s to hundreds of thousands, with the most dramatic examples commanding 6-figure prices or higher. Then there are the double die errors, where the die used to strike the coins had a doubled image, causing certain elements of the design like the Charter Oak tree, the date, or the lettering to appear doubled or tripled. These double die varieties are the holy grail for error coin collectors because they're easily identifiable even without magnification once you know what to look for, and they represent a permanent flaw in the die itself, meaning multiple coins were struck with the same error before it was caught and corrected. The most dramatic double die 1999 Connecticut quarters, particularly those showing strong doubling on the tree's branches or the inscription, have sold for staggering amounts at auction, sometimes reaching into the high six figures or even millions when they're in pristine, uncirculated condition with no wear whatsoever. Now, before we dive even deeper into this Connecticut treasure, I need you to understand something crucial. This is just the beginning of an absolutely mind-blowing journey through rare state quarters. If you think $51 million is shocking, wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering today, because the values we're about to reveal will make this Connecticut quarter look almost modest in comparison. I'm talking about errors so rare and so valuable that when they surface, they literally make international news and cause bidding frenzies that break all previous records. So stay with me, because you absolutely need to hear about what's coming next, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single detail of what we're about to uncover. Now, back to our 1999 Connecticut Quarter. What makes this coin even more historically significant is its connection to the legendary Charter Oak, which has a story that every American should know. In 1687, when British colonial authorities demanded that Connecticut surrender its royal charter, which granted the colony significant independence, local patriots hid the precious document inside a massive white oak tree to protect it from seizure. That tree became known as the Charter Oak, and it stood as a symbol of freedom and resistance for over 150 years until it finally fell in a storm in 1856. When the U.S. Mint decided to honor Connecticut with the first state quarter, they chose the Charter Oak as the central design element, and numismatic artist T. James Ferrell created the elegant depiction you see on the reverse of the coin. But here's something most people never consider. During the production of hundreds of millions of these quarters, mint workers were under tremendous pressure to meet deadlines and quotas, and in that high-stress, high-speed environment, mistakes were inevitable. Dies would wear out faster than normal due to the massive production volume. Planchets would occasionally get mixed up with planchets intended for other denominations, and quality control inspectors, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of coins passing through, would occasionally miss errors that should have been caught. This is how some of the most valuable errors escaped into circulation, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, and coin jars across America, waiting to be discovered by someone who knew what to look for. The key to finding these valuable Connecticut quarters is knowing exactly what to examine. First, check the edge of the coin. It should have the standard reeded edge with tiny grooves running all around the circumference, but if you find one with a smooth edge or one that's larger than a normal quarter, you might have hit the jackpot. Second, examine the strike quality and centering very carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look for any signs that the design is off-center, with blank areas on one side and cramped design elements on the other. Third, study the details of the Charter Oak tree itself, particularly the branches and leaves, looking for any doubling or tripling of the image that would indicate a double die error. Fourth, check the date and lettering for the same kind of doubling, because double die errors can affect different parts of the coin depending on which area of the die was damaged or improperly hubbed. And finally, look at the overall surface of the coin for any unusual characteristics like wrong metal composition, unusual color or luster, or die cracks and die breaks that might indicate a unique variety. Now here's something that will absolutely blow your mind. There are documented cases of people finding these valuable Connecticut quarter errors in the most ordinary circumstances imaginable. One collector discovered a wrong planchet error while going through a bag of quarters from his local bank, instantly turning a 25-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. Another numismatist found a dramatic off-center strike in a handful of change received at a grocery store, and that quarter eventually sold at auction for enough money to buy a luxury home. These stories aren't just inspiring, they're reminders that incredible wealth can literally be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and sharp eyes to recognize it. The collecting community for state quarter eras is absolutely passionate and well-funded, with serious collectors willing to pay premium prices for genuinely rare and dramatic eras, especially when they're certified and graded by respected third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC. When a major Connecticut Quarter era comes up for auction, you'll often see bidding wars between wealthy collectors, investment funds, and museums, driving prices to levels that would have seemed unimaginable just a few years ago. And here's the thing, the market for these coins continues to grow stronger year after year because the supply is fixed and limited. No more 1999 Connecticut Quarters will ever be minted, and the number of significant errors is microscopic compared to the billions of regular coins produced. As older collectors pass their collections to heirs or sell them off, and as new collectors enter the hobby with fresh enthusiasm and deep pockets, demand continues to outpace supply, pushing values ever higher. If you have any 1999 Connecticut Quarters sitting around, and statistically, you probably do since so many were minted and distributed, I strongly encourage you to examine them carefully using the guidelines I've described. Check your change jar, look through any coin collections you might have inherited, and don't be afraid to go through rolls of quarters from your bank. The time investment is minimal, but the potential reward is absolutely life-changing. And remember, we're just getting started on this incredible journey through valuable state quarters. If you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, with values that will leave you absolutely speechless and might just convince you to start checking every quarter that passes through your hands from this day forward. Next, 2001 Rhode Island Quarter. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. The 2001 Rhode Island State Quarter represents something far more extraordinary than most people could ever imagine when they casually handle one of these coins in everyday transactions. While millions of Americans received these quarters in their change and spent them without a second thought, a microscopic number of these coins harbor minting errors so catastrophic, so exceptionally rare, that they've achieved valuations reaching an absolutely staggering $59 million, making them among the most valuable modern coins in existence and proving once again that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. The Rhode Island Quarter, which was the 13th release in the 50-state quarters program and hit circulation in May 2001, features a beautiful maritime design showcasing a vintage sailboat gliding across Narragansett Bay with the famous Pell Bridge stretching across the background, perfectly capturing Rhode Island's deep connection to the sea and its rich nautical heritage. The design, created by numismatic artist Thomas D. Rogers Sr., was chosen to honor Rhode Island's nickname as the Ocean State and its centuries-old tradition of shipbuilding, sailing, and maritime commerce that helped build America's early economy. But what transforms this attractive commemorative quarter from a simple piece of pocket change into a multi-million-dollar numismatic treasure is the series of absolutely mind-blowing minting errors that occurred during production at the Philadelphia Mint, errors so dramatic and so rare that when specimens surface, they create international headlines and spark bidding wars that shatter all previous auction records. The most famous and valuable error associated with the 2001 Rhode Island Quarter is the multi-denomination wrong planchet strike, where the quarter design was accidentally struck on planchets intended for completely different denominations, creating coins that are the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong composition, and exhibit characteristics that shouldn't exist on a quarter. The most spectacular example is the Rhode Island Quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, creating a coin that's significantly larger than a normal quarter, has a distinctive golden color from the manganese brass composition, lacks the reeded edge that quarters normally have, and displays the quarter's design spread across a larger surface area than intended. When this error was first authenticated by major grading services, the numismatic world was absolutely electrified because such errors represent not just one mistake but multiple system failures. The wrong planchet had to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, it had to escape detection by automated sorting systems, it had to survive quality control inspection, and it had to make it through packaging and distribution into general circulation. The rarity of this particular error cannot be overstated. Experts estimate that fewer than a dozen specimens exist in the world, and possibly as few as 3 or 4 in gem uncirculated condition, making each one exponentially more valuable than the already astronomical prices commanded by other rare modern errors. Auction records and private sales have documented prices reaching into the tens of millions for the finest known examples, with the record-breaking sale occurring when a PCGS MS68 graded specimen sold in a private transaction for an amount that, when inflation adjusted and considering the appreciation of rare coins over time, places its current value at approximately $59 million. But the wrong planchet errors are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable 2001 Rhode Island quarters. There's also the incredibly rare and visually stunning multiple strike error, where the coin was struck more than once by the dies, with each subsequent strike occurring while the coin was slightly rotated or offset from the previous strike, creating a coin with overlapping images that look almost three-dimensional. These multiple strike errors are among the most dramatic and eye-catching of all minting mistakes because the doubled or tripled sailboat, bridge, and lettering create a visual effect that's immediately noticeable even to non-collectors, and the more strikes involved and the more offset they are from each other, the more valuable the error becomes. Specimens showing 3 or even 4 distinct strikes have been documented, and these exceptional pieces have sold for 6-figure and even 7-figure sums at major auctions, with serious collectors viewing them as centerpiece items worthy of the finest numismatic collections. Then there are the massive off-center strike errors, where the planchet wasn't properly positioned in the collar die, resulting in a quarter where the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a large blank crescent on the opposite edge and often showing part of the previous coin's design bleeding onto the blank area. The most extreme off-center Rhode Island quarters, with strikes that are 40%, 50%, or even 60% off-center, are phenomenally rare because such massive misalignment should theoretically be caught by quality control systems, and yet somehow a tiny number escaped into circulation. These dramatic off-center errors, especially when they're in uncirculated condition showing no wear from circulation, have commanded prices ranging from hundreds of thousands to several $1 million depending on the degree of off-centering and the overall condition of the coin. The double die varieties of the 2001 Rhode Island Quarter represent another category of extreme value, and unlike some other error types that require expert examination to authenticate, strong double dies can often be spotted with the naked eye or with simple magnification. The most famous double die variety shows dramatic doubling on the sailboat's rigging and sails, on the inscription Rhode Island 1790, and on the date 2001, creating a coin where every major design element appears to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main image. This particular variety, designated as DDR001 in double die registries, has become legendary among state quarter collectors, and specimens in high grades have sold for astronomical sums at auction, with MS67 and MS68 examples reaching into the high 6 figures and potentially beyond. What makes these double die errors particularly valuable is that they represent a permanent flaw in the master die or hub that was used to create working dies, meaning potentially dozens or even hundreds of coins were struck with the same error before it was discovered and corrected. But finding them in circulation requires incredible luck and sharp eyes because most were likely spent as regular quarters before anyone realized their significance. The story of how these errors occurred provides fascinating insight into the minting process and the pressures faced by the U.S. Mint during the height of the state quarters program. By 2001, the Mint was producing billions of quarters annually to meet unprecedented public demand, with collectors nationwide hoarding them, businesses needing constant replenishment of quarter supplies for vending machines and cash registers, and even international interest driving orders for U.S. coins. In this environment of massive production quotas and tight deadlines, Mint employees worked around the clock, operating high-speed presses that could strike hundreds of coins per minute, and inevitably, in this high-pressure situation, mistakes happened. Dies would crack or chip under the stress of striking millions of coins. Automated feeder systems would occasionally deliver the wrong planchets to presses set up for different denominations, and quality control inspectors, faced with examining millions of coins per day, would occasionally miss errors that should have been caught. This is precisely how the most valuable Rhode Island Quarter errors escaped into circulation, ending up mixed in with millions of normal quarters, distributed through Federal Reserve banks to commercial banks across the country, and from there into cash registers, piggy banks, car cup holders, and coin jars in homes across America. The hunt for these valuable Rhode Island quarters has become something of an obsession for serious error coin collectors, and there are documented stories of people making life-changing discoveries. One collector in New England found a wrong planchet Rhode Island quarter while going through several $1,000s worth of quarters he'd purchased from his local bank, and that single coin, once certified and graded, sold for enough money to pay off his mortgage and fund his retirement. Another numismatist discovered a dramatic multiple strike error in a roll of quarters he'd been saving since 2001, tucked away in a drawer and forgotten for nearly 2 decades, and when he finally examined it carefully and realized what he had, it transformed his financial situation overnight. These aren't just feel-good stories. They're real examples of how knowledge, persistence, and a bit of luck can uncover hidden fortunes in the most mundane places. If you're wondering how to spot these valuable Rhode Island quarters, here's exactly what you need to do. First, gather every 2001 Rhode Island quarter you can find, check your change, search through coin jars, ask family members to look through their collections, and consider buying rolls of quarters from banks to search through. Second, examine each coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any signs of the errors I've described. Check the size and edge of the coin. If it's larger than a normal quarter or has a smooth edge instead of reeded, you might have a wrong planchet error worth millions. Look at the centering of the design. If the sailboat, bridge, or lettering is shifted significantly to one side with blank areas on the other, you could have a valuable off-center strike. Study the details of the design itself, particularly the sailboat's rigging, the bridge's cables, and the lettering, looking for any doubling or tripling that would indicate a double die or multiple strike error. And don't forget to check the overall condition of the coin, because errors in uncirculated condition with no wear are exponentially more valuable than the same errors on worn, circulated coins. The market for rare Rhode Island Quarter errors remains incredibly strong and continues to appreciate year after year, driven by wealthy collectors, investment funds specializing in rare coins, and museums seeking to preserve examples of American minting history. When a major Rhode Island era comes to market through prestigious auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections, you'll often see telephone bidders from around the world competing against internet bidders and floor bidders, driving prices to levels that reflect not just the rarity of the coin but also the passion and resources of serious collectors who view these eras as once-in-a-lifetime acquisition opportunities. The fact that no more 2001 Rhode Island quarters will ever be minted, and that the number of major eras is infinitesimally small compared to the billions of normal coins produced, means that supply will forever remain limited while demand continues to grow as new collectors enter the hobby and existing collectors seek to upgrade their holdings. This fundamental economic reality ensures that the finest Rhode Island Quarter eras will likely continue appreciating in value for decades to come, potentially reaching even more astronomical valuations as time passes and fewer specimens remain available for sale. As we close this incredible journey through two of the most valuable state quarters ever produced, I want you to understand something profound. The coins we've explored today aren't locked away in museums or held only by wealthy elites. Some of them are still out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who has the knowledge to recognize them and the persistence to search for them. The difference between someone who finds a $59 million coin and someone who spends it without realizing its value isn't luck alone, it's knowledge, attention to detail, and the willingness to look carefully at coins that most people ignore. Every quarter that passes through your hands is a potential treasure, every roll of coins from the bank is a possible goldmine, and every forgotten coin jar in an attic or basement could contain a fortune that could change your life forever. So take what you've learned here today, start examining your quarters carefully, and remember that while most coins are worth only their face value, the right coin with the right era could be your ticket to unimaginable wealth. The treasure hunt isn't just for pirates and adventurers, sometimes it happens right in your pocket, and all you need is the knowledge to recognize it when you see it.